Today, we are once again getting into something that makes people really squirm, even more than bed bugs or lice. Can you guess what it is? It's money.
Okay. To be fair, bed bugs, lice, and money make me squirm. So
Right.
all of the things.
All of the above.
All the above makes me squirm. But today we're not going to be talking about spreadsheets or budgets or even how many lattes you buy at Starbucks.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
We're going to be talking about your relationship with money and how you have a relationship with money, whether you think you do or not.
Oh, gross. The drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Ick is what we do, it's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. Your gross out journey starts right here on Oh, Gross.
Today, we're going to be talking about your relationship with money. And we get to do this with my favorite financial expert, Shannah Game, who is amazing. Tell us why she's amazing, Jenny.
She is an award-winning money wellness expert, and she's host of Everyone's Talkin' Money podcast. She's also the author of a new book, and it's called Unraveling Your Relationship with Money. Ditch your money trauma so you can live an abundant life.
And there is so much trauma around money that I need to ditch.
Yes.
We need the abundant life. Let's go. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Let's ditch this trauma and get into this. Welcome back. Our favorite financial expert, everything money, is back with us, Shannah Game. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I like that title.
And we're excited because we are going to be focusing on your new book that's out, Unraveling Your Relationship with Money. And we are going to dive into a step further than what we talked about last time, which is the relationship we have with money and around money. And we are so excited to jump in. So let's do this.
I am so thrilled to be here. Yeah, I think everything we're going to talk about really just sort of jumps off of the last conversation and really flows with it. You know, I think what's really interesting is most people don't think they have a relationship with money. Like that seems like a weird concept. And yet when we think about all the emotions we feel about money, it's like, oh yes, we definitely have a relationship with money. And most of us, me included, for many, many years, it's not very great.
Yeah, we seem to have a lot of breakups, Money and I.
Yeah. And arguments and fight.
And arguments. Definitely
Yes.
arguments.
Arguments and
Yeah.
breakups, and then we make up.
And then you're friends again.
Then we're
Yes.
friends again. And then we jump right in.
Well, I share this story in my book that I'm a money expert. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm a certified financial planner, a trauma of money expert. I have all the licenses. And yet I did not look at my ATM receipts for over 10 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. That is so raw and amazing. So your ATM, what was it about the ATM for you that you did not look?
It's numbers. So my brain spirals out of control. When I see my numbers, I immediately go to whatever's in my bank account. I start subtracting things. And by, half a second later, I'm homeless. I'm on the street. I don't have any money.
Yeah.
Like that is just directly where my brain goes.
It's a trigger for you.
So relatable.
It's what makes me really good at helping other people.
Right.
The fact that I'm so good with numbers. But for me, it was just always this pain point. So I would literally create origami cranes out of all my ATM receipts and shove them in my wallet. Never, ever to be seen. Never, ever to be seen. Yeah.
Well, at least you were creative.
I was very creative. Like, I needed something to do with them. And I started helping other people with money and realizing that my job was more therapist than it was money expert.
Right.
The money expert piece was such a tiny piece of the equation. So I started helping other people with this process. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to actually do this to myself. And it was actually the day I left my house. I was getting a divorce and I walked away from everything I owned except for a very expensive BMW and a blue suitcase. And that was all I had to my name. And I drove to the ATM because I needed to get some cash. And I remembered thinking okay, if there is ever a moment that you need to look at this ATM receipt, is right now. So I took the receipt out. I didn't look at it. I pulled in a spot in the parking lot. And I literally did a like, okay, we're going to do a 1, 2, 3 look. We're going to look for 2 seconds and then we're not going to look. And so I had to like baby step my way into rewriting the story that whatever the numbers were, they weren't catastrophic like what I was, imagining in my head. And so that really helped me, I think, connect me to the people I was helping, because I was like, God, this is so powerful for me. This same sort of power and inertia shows up with other people in their own way. And let me help figure out like what that is for each person and how we can start to work through that. I say I've been writing this book for like 15 years. That's really the jumpstart to writing this book.
Okay, what I love is that one of your top tips is give it a name. Like, I thought that was so powerful. Like, give this relationship and this with money a name. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about this before in the other episode, that shame is really this like centerpiece for most of us around money. And so I always say, let's just like rename this thing. So I used to call mine Never Enough Nancy was my like little shame piece, where I just thought, well, there's just never enough money. And so I thought, well, if like performers like Beyonce, right, can get on stage and like have their stage name, like I can give my shame a name. And so every time I would start to feel that idea of like never enough, I'd be like, wait a minute, Nancy, like we need to have a conversation here. But it helped separate me from the feeling,
from the shame,
and realizing that that was just a feeling, that wasn't the entirety of the story or the relationship, and that I could actually work to change that piece. So I'm a big proponent, anything that comes to money. If you hate the word budgeting, if you like any of these money terms, just change the name. I used to call my budget my travel itinerary because I love to travel. And so it was literally the vehicle.
Because budget can be a dirty word too.
Yeah.
It's like this taboo word of like a budget.
So just rename these things. In the money world, we love to use a lot of acronyms and like scary words that really aren't scary, but I think it's what, keeps people feeling the fear around money. Just change the words, change the names, name the shame, name the anxiety, and it helps to create a little bit of distance between you and that thing.
Yeah, because now it's not so tethered to you that you're too afraid to look at it because you feel like it's going to take you down. It's like living in this other space. It's like actually like a good way to disassociate with the money issue instead of a bad way of disassociating with money in general in your relationship.
Right.
I love that. You got to think of what our money shame name is going to be, girls.
Broke Betty.
I like Broke Betty.
I like Broke Betty. That's really funny.
I love how it lightens the mood, because I never really could put into words how many emotions are tied to money. And so many of them are negative, but it does make it a little more lighthearted and a little less stressful. Broke Betty. So,
well, and I think that you're hitting the nail on the head there, Jenny. It's about the feeling and the emotions. And that's a lot of what you talk about too in this book, right? Is that let's talk about the feelings.
I use my story really as reads more like a memoir. So it's way more approachable than a money book. I wanted to write like the anti-money money book, really. And so I share very open, honestly, my story, but I also infuse lots of other people's stories so that you can find yourself in these different people. So one story that's super powerful, I was working with a couple and they were living in a rent-controlled apartment in Hollywood, but they made very good money. Between them, they made over like $250,000 and they wanted to buy a house and they couldn't figure out like, how come we can never save enough money to buy a house? And so, I met with them and I was like, okay, do you have a budget or anything? And they handed me this like wrinkled piece of paper and they're like this. And I'm like, okay, when was the last time you updated this with real numbers? And they're like, why would you do that? So I went home and I looked at their bank statements. I looked what's on that sheet of paper. And I'm very good at like putting the puzzle pieces together. And so I came back to their house and I said, okay, you guys love to eat out, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I mean, we love to treat our friends. They both grew up in poverty and eating out wasn't something they do. So they love to like treat their friends, go out to dinner. Well, on this crumpled sheet of paper, they thought they were spending $300 to $400 a month eating out. And in reality, they were spending $3,000 to $4,000 a month eating out. Now you go, that's crazy. How do you not know that, right? It's an emotion for them. For them to be able to treat their friends felt like they were giving their younger self something they couldn't have.
That money inner child again.
Yes. So once they saw that, they was like, oh my gosh. And they decided to create a little boundary around it. And, you know, in 9 months, they had enough money to buy a house, right? There are so many stories like that I could share over and over and over again. And so many are in the book that speak to that idea that it is not just the numbers. I could tell them the numbers all day long, and it wasn't going to change that narrative. They had to really understand, oh, this is why we're doing this. And this is why we're kind of like turning a blind eye to what was actually happening.
Well, like shopping for me, like going back to a young age, it was like an event. So when I go with my mom or my aunt, we go shopping, you would shop and then you get all these things and you buy clothes and then you sit down and you'd have this dinner and it was like a bonding time. And while nowadays we don't have that anymore because of all this digital era we're living in, I think that high I get from shopping, now that you say that, I bet you it takes me back to when I was a kid and that time of the joy that it would make me feel to get to go on the shopping trips.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And that's such a powerful visual for us that have lived an experience like that. I have a very similar experience, you know? And so for me, having something show up on my doorstep gives me that same feeling. Yeah.
It's joy. It's pure joy.
It is pure joy. What am I saying? Yes.
The best thing in the world. But when you were telling this story, I was like, oh my gosh, that could totally be me. I bet you I'd be like, I don't understand. Look at our finances. And you'd be like, Amazon. And I'd be like, oh, we're only spending like $300 on Amazon. Like, no, you're not.
Okay, we're going to call you Amazon Alice. How about that?
Yeah.
Yes,
how about that?
I love it. Amazon Alice is now my money shame.
But it also works like both ways. So I grew up in a family, we didn't have to worry about money, but whenever we would go shopping, my mom would go straight to the sales racks or the clearance racks. So I thought, oh, you always have to buy something on sale.
Yeah.
Like you don't dare buy something full price.
Right.
And so sometimes it can work, these patterns in relationship can work almost in reverse where someone doesn't want to spend, right? They actually have no joy when they spend money. And so it's working on that pattern as well, right? To find some sort of happy medium where we can spend, but, you know, we're not spending everything, but we are spending something, right? I liken it to like giving ourselves a permission slip to live and recognizing those feelings and saying like, okay, is there some feeling or some activity I could do that gives me that same rush of joy of shopping with my mom that doesn't require me to go to Amazon?
Right. Or Instacart. I actually had to break up with Instacart because of that. I was like, one day I looked in the price difference because everything has gotten more and more expensive, as we all know, of like going to the physical grocery store and doing it. And it no longer had made sense. But there was some sort of joy. I had to identify that. I was like, I was getting the same joy on my Instacart. Like, what? There is a new cold brew that I can get on sale. I need to have cold brew coffee in my fridge. It's going to save me money in the long run because then I'm not going to buy the coffee in the coffee shop, right?
And I think that people in the money world talk a lot about restriction and limitation. And so then that further correlates money with a chore, with something we don't want to do. But I think that we need to rewrite that story because the only reason that you care maybe to not spend so much on Amazon, it needs to be connected to a bigger why. Right? What is it that you ultimately want? Is it like, well, I want to retire when I'm 50 and not 60. So, or is it that, you know, well, I want to go on this lavish trip or I need to pay for my parents' healthcare, whatever it is, right? What is that bigger why? And what's the feeling attached to that bigger why? And so that gives you some room. Like, this is not 100% game. We're not going for like perfection around money. We're going for like 70% of the time. Maybe I choose not to get the extra cold brew. 30% of the time, I do it and I'm fine with it. I don't guilt or shame myself, right?
Yeah, because you're not trying to fix it. I love that your whole thing is not fixing, it's feeling, like you said.
Thank you for saying that because I think a lot of times, and we can even talk about this with food as well, sometimes it's just things in moderation.
Yeah. And restrictions are negative, and we all
Right.
fall into that pattern where then we end up wanting to punish ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you create a restriction with your money, is what I'm hearing, you're going to end up falling back into those patterns of like, I'm a terrible human being again. I haven't stayed in my restrictions and I haven't followed these things. So now it's giving you another excuse to punish yourself.
More shame, more guilt. You're probably
Right.
going to spend more money.
Yeah.
It just keeps the cycle going on and on and on. And it's interesting you talk about food, Molly, because diet culture, right, and money restriction culture, they're very similar, right?
Yeah.
The way we talk about food is the same way we could talk about money, right? And so it really is finding the healthy thing, what works best for your body is the same of looking at what works best for my money. Like, where do I actually want this to go? How do I actually want to use this money? And putting some blinders up to what's happening around you, what everyone else is doing, what your friends are doing, all of that. And it's difficult, but it's really an important piece to resetting your relationship with money and cultivating something that just feels a lot better.
Well, yeah, it's healthy. And also, like, I had a friend once who they decided to not spend anything for a month. Like, this was like this big challenge, right? Crazy when you think about it, right? So except for like certain things you had no choice, like you need gas if you're going to go to your job. But I also know that when we checked in, when they got through it, it was like, oh, we learned all these things about our finances. But then cut to the second month, they ended up spending more. Right?
Oh no, to make up for it.
It's the same reason you go on a cleanse and you feel so great because XYZ for 30 days and then you're getting the cheese fries before you start the cleanse or after.
Or both, yeah.
Or both.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same concept of like, that's a cycle of punishment instead of like, I'm going on a cleanse because it makes me feel great. This is energizing me. It's not about, I'm taking all these things away from myself so that I can look better or feel, like the more the negative reasons we enter something, it flips on us. And then we're like, okay, now I got to spend like a crazy person because I didn't spend any money last month. So it's fine. It's fine.
And with money, we're always looking for like the tiniest nuanced bit to reaffirm the beliefs of like, I'm bad with money or I shouldn't be trusted with money. Like the tiniest thing, like let's say you forgot to pay a bill. Like, you know what? It happens to every single human. But what most of us do is we go to like, see, there I go. Like I shouldn't be trusted with money.
Right.
Or, yep, I'm bad with money. And then we just keep that story and narrative going on versus just being like, okay, I forgot to pay a bill.
Right.
It's really okay.
I know for me too, my relationship with money is I'm looking for an excuse to panic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for an excuse that this is like a high octane, oh my gosh, we're in such terrible XYZ. I'm looking to go back to that. And it's like, no, wait, not everything is a panic. We trigger ourselves almost on purpose when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
And as women, I don't care how old we are, we still feel that narrative of you got to be the good girl, right? So if you forgot to pay your thing, like somehow you're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
The crazy thing is like, who are you in trouble with, right?
It is a feeling of like you're in trouble. I love that. It's true. It's so true. So with these belief systems, how do we change it? Like, how do we take our steps to change that?
We talked about this a lot in the episode that we did previously, but it's really about finding, fact from fiction. I think if we all go back to childhood, we probably can think of like, I don't know if the three of you have this, but like some saying that was rampant in your family. They're like, money doesn't grow on trees. Or
Yes.
there's all these crazy things. For instance, like my dad, somewhere around like early 2000s when like work culture started to change, he would drive by gyms in like the middle of the day. And if I'd be riding with him, he's like, what are these people doing? It's like 1:00. Shouldn't they be at work? And I'm explaining to him that work looks very different. But what I realize is like him saying that is like, for me, further cementing a narrative that
You have to work all the time.
and earning money means I'm, at a desk from 8:30 to 5:30 and I'm struggling and it's hard, right? And so, thinking about those stories and those messages and then thinking like, okay, does this belong to me or does this belong to someone else? Is this true? Is this false? And then do I want to carry this forward? So for me in that situation, I was like, no, okay, I create work the way I want to create it. I don't have to attach on to, his belief about that it has to be hard or there has to be a hustle or that there's always an ebb and flow that's like this dramatic, have money, don't have money, have money, don't have money. And so it's picking that belief apart and finding what you want to replace it with. So what do you want the new version of that to be?
That's so powerful.
That's so freeing. It's freeing. Don't you think? I feel the same way about our business. I'm sure Molly does as well, because for me, I feel like if I'm not working, that I'm failing. So if I have free time, I actually feel guilty about not doing something to make money for the company and for my employees or for my family. And that's probably something that, if I would think about it, goes back to some of the things that I was told as a child about work. I haven't thought about that before.
Right.
Or if you're not constantly busy, I mean, that's what I fall into too. If I'm not super busy constantly, then I must not be working hard and I must not, and money's not going to come, right? That I have to constantly be busy and constantly burning yourself out.
Right.
Right.
And that's the only way you can be making money. And it's so true. And then you meet somebody who is like laying in the pool or doing whatever. And you're like, oh, they must not be working. And it's not true. They could be,
Right.
They just have boundaries.
Right, exactly.
Right.
What do you think, like when we use the word relationships, I think too in marriage, money.
Oh, wow.
So we enter into this marriage, right? But nobody talks about your belief systems you have and you're entering into this marriage, and your spouse is going to be totally different, most likely, and have a different story.
Absolutely. Right. And both of our stories are valid and very real to us. And so this is like place number one where shame can be reaffirmed or reignited is we tend to place our story on someone else, right? So like, I can't believe they're doing X, Y, Z, right? Well, that might not be something that we choose to do, but that's a piece of their story. So this is where I think curiosity is so key. And I have a question deck at my house that whenever I'm around a new couple, like I hand them this question deck, and the questions are like, how do you feel about money, right? What were the words that you heard growing up around money? What makes you most anxious around money, right? So these questions that open up conversation and curiosity rather than shame and blame. I think it's really important to couples to take the numbers out of the conversation so that you could get it to a place of understanding. You know, for instance, my husband grew up in a family where they always had enough money for food and clothes, but his stepdad was always doing something to lose his job. So they were moving from like house to house to house to house. So he has a huge insecurity around money, always thinks it's going to go away, just like in a poof, right? You know, we're not going to have money, right? And I come from a different story. And so we really had to take the numbers out and start talking about the narrative and the story around money to get to a place where we could come back together and figure out, okay, what do we want to do as partners, honoring both people's stories. And when you hear the stories, right, you can start to find the other person's strengths. And I think that's what's really important is trying to play to each person's strengths.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be both partners in managing the money, right? It could be one partner that does it. The other partner, they come together for a money date, they get an update, okay, off they go, right? It doesn't have to be that just the man makes the money or just the woman makes it, right? You can create this however you want, but really thinking about dropping the blame and shame. You don't need to go to therapy. Just try the question, conversation, curiosity. You're going to be really surprised at what you guys discover.
Well, and I also think a lot of times in marriage or a relationship, one partner ends up taking the bigger reign of the finances. Whether that doesn't mean that partner is necessarily making the money, but we're just talking about like the bookkeeping, right? And there's a stress there, right? And then the other partner who might not be doing it is, if they are the one who's making more money or whatever, is got to stress as well. And then you're not communicating. So I love this idea of that you don't have to necessarily pass the baton and do it all together or share the baton the whole time. You could just make a money date as a check-in, just like you're checking in with everything else that you told us the last episode, which is what we've signed up with, our subscriptions. Because I think that's a big thing. Like I know in our household, a lot of times my husband does all the QuickBooks because of our company. So then there's triggers for me where I'm freaking out about stuff I probably shouldn't freak out about because I'm not doing X, Y, Z, and doing a slight check-in would just alleviate that. And also talk about, well, why are you triggered? Right? Instead of, yelling about the numbers. That's such great advice.
Yeah, just getting super curious, and even being able to say like, hey, I know I'm the one who does the QuickBooks, but man, this makes me like so nervous, or like I got to figure out a better way to do this. Do you have any suggestions? Because I'm feeling triggered all over the place, or whatever it might be. And it's so much more helpful than saying, you spent $45 on, how could you do that?
Starbucks. That's my husband with the Starbucks.
Right.
Gave it up, but yeah.
It's just not helpful.
No, it's not. It's not. Now, when you talk about your weekly check-ins, is that the time, since you've already like set up, like we said in the last episode, your 15 minutes a week that you're checking in with your finances and going on your date? Is that a good time to also check in with your spouse, or is it keep it the same? You don't have to have 17 different check-ins.
Nope. In fact, my spouse knows when I'm usually the one, since I am the money person, who does the majority of that. So he comes in for the last 5 minutes.
Oh, I love that.
And the last 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is what I noticed from last week. This is what I think's coming up. Is there anything you want to talk about? Any tensions or anything? No. Okay. Check. Okay. Is there anything else we want to like bring onto our goals, or I do a quick check-in? Like here we are with, the savings goal. Okay, cool. Okay. Break. So I'm doing the heavy checking in. He's coming in for just a couple minutes. And it's our time to air anything. If someone said something or felt something, that's our space to kind of do that in. And then we break.
I love that. Because then you're taking the argument out during the week. Because there's a time to discuss it, right? We've set a time to discuss it. It's like we have our time to check in every week. That's when we're going to talk about this. We're not going to stress each other out, and then we can let it all go if we need to. And probably by the time you do it and it's planned, just like you said, walk away for putting all that stuff in your cart, walk away for 24 hours. It's the same idea. By the time you're discussing it on Sunday, maybe it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, we used to always do this thing when we were first married where each of us would buy something, or, Amazon would come and we'd say something crazy like, oh yeah, I got this, it was on sale or it was a deal. And we both knew that wasn't the case.
I do that too.
Yeah. I looked at him one time in a money date and I was like, why are we doing this? This is like, we're adults. Like we do not actually need to justify. So what we did is we set what we call a don't ask, don't tell spending limit.
Oh.
So we can spend up to that dollar amount without having to check in with the other person at all, or say something like it's on sale or any of that kind of vocabulary. Anything over that, we just do a quick check-in. Like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this thing. It's $500. Are you cool with it? Yep. Cool. Go. Okay. So we just eliminated that need to feel like we were little kids again.
I love that.
Yes.
So smart. So smart.
Not having to say it was on sale or sneak it in. Yeah.
Right. Just set your limit of what works for your budget, and then you don't have to like berate each other basically, or feel that you got to make up an excuse.
Yes.
And everyone's informed, which could probably squash having to have a fight like we were talking about later on.
I mean, you can have the fight if you want to have the fight, but
Well, I mean, I think that's most couples fight about money.
Yeah.
It's always money. It is always money. And therefore.
And it's actually never about money.
And it's never about money. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much fear built around it because you're not discussing it, then it just becomes the outlet of like everything. And to make this simple and also an activity you can do together is just incredible. With all this being said, what are your top 5 takeaways in general when we're looking at our relationship specifically with money that we can do simple things to improve and just take a look at for everybody to know?
Well, the first one that we talked about is don't try to fix everything. Just try to feel like, what am I feeling? Where is this coming from? Rather than going straight to like, I need to fix this. I need a new spreadsheet, or I need a new app, or I need something like that, right? Trust me, you can have all the apps in the world, right? It's not going to fix it. So start with investigating. Okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel triggered? Or when I talk to my spouse about money, I always feel like my heart starts racing. Like, what is that about? For me, I always felt like when I'm talking to my spouse, like I'm talking to my dad. And it was like, oh my God, like I'm doing something wrong. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm in my 40s. Like, this is not my dad, And so
true.
I really had to change that, right?
Yeah.
The second would be, we talked about that renaming thing, right? Your broke Bettys and your Amazon Alice's and, never enough Nancy's. Like, give them a name, give them a personality. When they start to come up, like, have a playful feel around these things, right? Try to start separating yourself from who you are as a person and who these feelings and beliefs are, because we can change those, right? The money dates, these are a ritual. So start creating these rituals that are not about spreadsheets, that are not about math, that are not about these, alerts coming up, right? We talked about in the last episode. So creating these rituals where you go somewhere. You go somewhere fun. You go to the park, right? You create 15 minutes when you're going to look in on your money. Like, you do something that feels like a ritual that isn't about boring money, I think is important. Rewriting the belief, thinking about, is this true? Is this not? Can I change this? And spoiler alert, yes, you can. You're in control, right? You can change this.
And when we talk about rewriting our beliefs,
yes,
is it literally rewriting it? Because I know we do that in coaching. It's like, hey, I believe money is blank. And then you literally try to rewrite that idea.
It's the same sort of thing.
Cool.
Yep.
I love that.
Mindfulness and this idea of relationship with money, they're so interconnected, right? It's being present with your situation, right? And saying, like, is what's coming up for me, like, present today? Is that something from the past or something I'm worried about in the future? Do I actually need to, freak out about that, right? Just having these conversations with yourself, I think is—
without judgment.
Without judgment, shame, guilt, blame, all of those negative words that we tend to attach, right? And then I think being truthful with yourself. And I would also say being okay saying it out loud. Just like I was like, you know what? I didn't look at my ATM receipts for 10 years. And here's why. Find a trusted group of friends where you could start to have some of these conversations about money that are not about success, that are about the hard bits, about the places where you're struggling or the things that are scary for you, where you don't need people to solve it for you. You just need people to hear the story.
I love that.
I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we're very afraid to talk about money in a social setting or in a group. And that's the good, the bad, the all between, or how do we get out of it, or how we got there.
How we got there is incredibly important.
It's incredibly important how we got there. And I definitely don't think I can name a relationship where I talk about how I got to a place with something with money with someone. Like, it's not in our normal conversation. It's not what we're taught as a society.
Mm-hmm.
To say, like, guess what?
You're right. It's a secret thing, and that's just taught.
It's a secret thing. Guess what? I have a closet full of the same shirt in 7 different colors or whatever it might be, right?
Right.
We don't talk about that. Or I'm over panicking because I'm spending hours worrying about I'm not going to have enough money. And we don't talk about that.
Yeah. And those aren't character flaws, by the way. They're just human elements.
It's human elements. And it's not the big elephant in the room when you talk about it anymore. It becomes a tiny ant. So powerful. Everything you're doing is so powerful, Shannah. I encourage everyone, please go check out her podcast, Everyone's Talking Money, and also read her book. You continually I've just seen it over the past 10 years, no matter what is happening in the world. I'm going to say it again. She always finds a way to talk about money that we all relate to, we all understand, and we all know sometimes changes and grows. Whatever stage we're at in our life, that relationship has to be reevaluated, which you are always looking at. And I love it.
Thank you so much.
It's like we've had therapy for money.
Yes. Thank you for the money therapy.
I feel so much better. I feel like you've given me therapy. It's been so freeing,
Yes.
and you make me feel so calm about it. And I've never felt that way before. So I really want to thank you. I really needed this money therapy. I really did.
Absolutely. That is my approach to make you feel calm.
It is. It is feel calm. And you're excited. You're excited. I hope all listeners are excited too. And we'll make sure that we have on the website everything that Shannah has given tips about and some of these exercises. And we'll also put her information up to where you can find more tips from her. But at the end of the day, I'm excited to try this stuff. I'm literally excited to go and try all this and see how it feels. And also, I'm kind of excited to have a money date, even if it's for 5 minutes with my husband and then 10 minutes with myself.
Right. For 1 minute, it. You make it whatever you can. I have
Right.
I'll have a freebie where I'll send you the link as well. I have a free 4-part audio series, short audio called Bank Account Therapy. And
I
it
love it.
literally is like I am just talking in your ear on 4-day basis with some exercises around all of this that we've been talking about.
Oh, I love it. And
Thank
that's so
you.
amazing. Thank you
I could
so
hear
much.
you listen to you talk all day. It's just so
Yes.
wonderful.
So good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And we're so excited, to dig into this. And hopefully next time we talk, we're going to tell you how this went for us.
Yes, I can't wait.
She is just amazing. Shannah Game is amazing.
She's incredible.
Yes, she's so calming.
She's so calming and she is so amazing. She's actually going to be giving our listeners a link it'll be on our website to her 4-part audio series that is called Bank Account Therapy. So you can hear more from Shannah and how she can help you, just whispering in your ear to help you with your finances. It'll be on ogross.com. But I have to say that what I love is that these things are so simple and it's really about slowly changing your relationship with money because we all have one. I love it.
I'm just so glad that she makes it very relatable
Yes.
because I've actually read some other books before where she said it was very, number heavy. I like the fact that she actually relates it to stories.
Yeah.
You can actually put yourself in that position and go, oh, well, that person did it just like me, or this person has an issue just like me.
Well, also, there's not too many rules. I think a lot of the financial books I've read in the past have all these rules you're supposed to do.
Yes.
It's very stringent and it's very much like, hey, if you have a bank account and it's this, put $10 in no matter what. And there's a place for that. But her whole thing is the foundation, and the foundation is going to be broken if you are punishing yourself around money, if you have anxiety around money, if you're angry at money, right? All the things that can happen in a relationship, right?
Yes.
That foundation is broken. You can't build on top of it. You can't introduce, I'm going to put this much into my savings because your relationship is broken at the foundation.
Well, she makes you want to change your relationship because she really is like a money therapist. I mean, she really gets into the psychology of it, of the whys, and then the psychology of the how. And I think that also the way, like you said, that she breaks it down into simple steps is one of the ways that she really is a money therapist because she makes it where it's not so overwhelming and you actually can do it if you take it one little step at a time.
I go back to saying improving your life is about moments. And once we take the pressure off of it being some sort of, I've got to do this for 30 days, or I have to spend an hour meditating, or I need to financially plan an hour a week. I mean, she is a top financial expert and top planner. And she's taking 15 minutes a week, only 5 of which she's doing with her husband, but she's doing it consistently. And she's doing it in a place that is not just her desk. Literally, she's on a financial date with herself. That right there tells you like 15 minutes consistently once a week in a place that doesn't stress you out is going to change your life and your relationship with money.
I love it.
I love it.
So less stressful and so helpful. I could listen to her all day. I absolutely adore
She's
it.
great. And so make sure on that note, if you want to learn more tips and you want to continue to find these moments in life, please, if you haven't already, follow us wherever you're getting your podcast and listening right now. Click that follow button for Oh Gross, because we will continue to bring you the experts and continue to break the taboos and bring you the information.
So you can head over also to our website, ogross.com, for the best financial coach ever, because she made me feel so calm and at ease about everything. And get more information, ogross.com.
And we're going to make sure anything you heard today will be reiterated there, her tips. If you weren't taking notes, and you should have been. No, I'm kidding. We will have it on our website.
And don't forget our socials at It's Oh Gross for more tips also.
Oh, gross. That drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend, taboos. Icky's what we do. Psoriasis, podiatrist, and pinworms too. It's so gross. No need for strife because gross. Life is part of life. It's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. We got the facts, nothing to fear. Oh, gross. It's just science. No, it's not weird. It's just science, nothing to fear. It's just science, so wipe those tears. It's boogers and rush and that sticky scratch. Oh, gross.